Right on. Somebody call for an exterminator. That's what I thought. Failure has arrived. Ready to roll out! Battle cruiser operational.
So, hello and welcome to the 44th episode of the Undermind. My guests today are NiteKat and WillBot. Hi guys.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
And WillBot, you're the first time appearing on this podcast, so I guess some introductions are in order. Can you, let's start with that for a change. Can you introduce yourself a little bit? How did you find about this scene? And, well, it's up to you. Please start your monologue now.
Well, yeah, this might take very long, but I will start with the basic things. So, my name is WillBot, and I'm the author of two bots which are on the SSCIT. And the first one is WillBot, which also then inspired me for the name, or says it came one in one. And the second one is Willy T. And the first one was WillBot. It was a bit, well, let's say it's more of a, it's not a joke, but it's kind of simple. And I started and I learned quite a lot. And after a while, I said, okay, maybe it's a random bot. So I said, well, that's gonna be a lot of work if I want to be serious with this bot. So I left it as it is, and then I also wanted to start with C++, and then I started my second bot, Willy T. And yeah, well, I'm working on this now for like 2 years, and it's quite impressive what it's going on, and also how this bot develops. And
When you say you wanted to start with C++, do you mean you learned C++ during the coding of your bot, or was that your tech stack originally and that's why you chose it?
well, yeah, actually, I learned it. So I will start now. My background is not in computer science, but my background is in physics. And when I made my master thesis, I first time came into contact with coding because there was other guys who had knowledge about it and set up some programs and said, okay, here you can help us if you want. And I said, oh, very nice. So I can learn about this. And of course, this was all in Python because Python is, I guess, what you learn today at university first. And just, of course, it's better for learning, I guess. Yeah. And then only after a while, when I stumbled upon this SSCIT scene, I see, okay, that's I know StarCraft and I know a bit about bots. So in general, I had an idea what about to do, and I say, okay, so that's too bad. There's nothing in Python for it, or at least nothing you could really find very up there, out there in the front. So it was only Java and C++, and yeah, and then there was the tutorial on the SSCIT side, and this was for Java, and this was like automatically. So okay, then I follow this, and I will try Java, yeah, and also I had the bot called Marine Hell. Marine Hell is this bot. Which is very simple, which just builds marines, and and this is like one file, and you can really read it and understand it as a beginner. Yeah, and I took this as a inspiration and started WillBot from there. And only after a while I saw, okay, At that time, I guess there was only this, not only, but which I took was this BW mirror, and it was set. It's kind of slow, and it's better to do something in C++. And also, I was interested to learn more, and then I tried C++ and with the next bot.
Sounds great. And how did you find out about SCIT?
Yeah, I found it about via Twitch. I was normally watching, like I say, more modern style games. Big fan of Dota, and I watched so Dota on Twitch, and yeah, and then I went around and said, oh, let's look up what about these old games I know. And then I typed in StarCraft, and okay, there were these the few channels which are active, like let's say perhaps it was only 5, yeah, and this one channel, and it was bots versus bot, and this I pretty fast understood, unlike some other people which come along the scene which are confused, but I was very intrigued. How does this work? Is there somebody setting up each game, or what is going on? And I was really confused, and I couldn't think of this tournament module. Yeah, and I was okay. That would be very nice, but I guess at that point I didn't knew coding, and then I forgot about it for a while. And only then, after I knew coding, I came back and yeah, I found this and say, the tutorial, and if I learn this language, I could try it, and it will be really funny to, to set every unit. Let's say just build the army 200 of 200, and then via coding you can set everything in motion in one frame, and which you could never do when you would play it as a player. So it was like the first intention, and then of course it's like this. A really nice example, Marine Hell, which built up its 50 Marines. Yeah, it's really not much what it's doing. Just build some, go mine, build some SUVs, build some building, and build these 50 Marines, and then have fun, go all in, and maybe you win, and maybe you don't. And yeah, so it was a nice example.
Marine Hell is the perfect benchmark. If your bot can beat that, that means that it's maybe ready for ladder, because it's kind of a bare minimum bot. So that's a good benchmark. And did you play StarCraft before, like competitively, or any serious capacity, or just like to play it as, I don't know, single player or something?
Yeah, no, I'm not a very competitive type, and in all of the games I try, so I'm pretty sure I have like exactly one game of StarCraft online against another player, which was, I guess, in the mid 2000s, and I got handled pretty bad, and I said, oh no, thank you, I don't need this. So I'm not a competitive person. Like, for example, when I play Dota, I always prefer to play the bots, and just later on when all this goofy modes came up, and then I played these, but I was never a competitive person that liked to play against others and to prove himself. Well, you can get better only with the bot that came up, because then it's I don't have to work at the moment, so I'm not stressed out, but I can work in a general plan, and yeah, it's more fits me more, I guess.
More of an analytical mind. And then did you play your own bot on SCHNAIL?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, well, yeah, SCHNAIL is very great. It's really nice, and so I tried it, and yeah, I was a bit disappointed. Okay, I know all of the weaknesses my bot had, but it was, it was too easy to beat it, and I did some adjustments since SCHNAIL came out, so it's a bit more random play, and it's not so predictable, but I still can beat it. But I also, as I said, I'm not very competitive, so I didn't bother with trying the rank mode. I was fine with the practice mode.
Practice mode is actually vastly more popular, and it is a little surprising to me still, but if that what people want, I'm all for it. Okay, let's switch to NiteKat a little bit. NiteKat, what you've been up to lately? I saw you streaming a lot of Diablo API. Was that you actively developing it or just streaming the runs themselves?
Thank you. So yeah, it's a little bit of both. So usually when I'm streaming the bot playing, oftentimes I'm working in the background, but a lot of the way that I work, and I've even worked this way on my BW API bot, is to just watch the games as they unfold and find bugs that way. I know a lot of people have some very pro setups for their bots where they'll have logs and everything output by it and find bugs that way. But no, I'm very much a practical person where I need to watch it and I see it do something stupid and go, oh, okay, I need to fix that. So a bit of the streaming is me sometimes just kind of watching the bot to find those things to work on, but then I'm also working on both the API itself because it's still not in a full release status, and the bot itself as well.
I don't know about that, but any other ARPGs, do they have APIs for them, like Diablo 2, maybe 3, or Path of Exile? I don't really think that is something the developers are very open to, because StarCraft is a little bit different. With ARPGs, it's a very much more open to exploitation, and a bot can farm forever, and ARPGs are kind of about farming. So my question is back to the original question: do you know about any other ARPG APIs for bot development?
The short answer to that would be no. The slightly longer answer would be I know that there are, like as you say, part of the process of playing an ARPG tends to be that you need to farm for equipment or things like that to be able to progress in harder difficulties or what have you. And so there are definitely bots that are built with those sort of malicious intents in mind. Especially, I know there are multiple botting tools available for Diablo 2 that are not really open source or designed for the AI community. They're more designed for, we know this specific monster has good drops. And so it's designed that you give it a character designed a certain way, and it can just repeatedly join games and kill that monster and grab loot, and you pick what thresholds, etc. So there's nothing that is like a open API that's meant for AI development that I'm aware of in at least any other Blizzard ARPG. I know that Facebook recently put out some stuff for, I think it's NetHack is the name of the game, which is an old Diablo-like dungeon crawler, Diablo 1-like, but it's like not graphical. It's all in a console. I remember seeing that they had posted some stuff about that recently, but I'm not aware outside of that of any other ARPG stuff that's designed for AI development.
Well, I think NetHack is a roguelike game. It's a little bit different than Diablo. So with being roguelike, it is the key characteristic of that genre is permanent death. So you can only screw up once. And that's a little bit more interesting than, let's say, infinite farming in something. And it's especially problematic in games like Path of Exile when there is only online mode. You can't play Path of Exile single player. So yeah, that's a little bit different than Brood War, which you can definitely play in single player 1v1 matches.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I would love to see like an API as well for something like Diablo 2, but Diablo 2 still is kind of is still actively maintained by Blizzard. I mean, I don't think they've put out a patch for a few years now, but like they just recently, I think last month, reset the ladder for the game. So they're still, giving it that support and everything. And now I've heard that a remaster of it was announced, but I haven't seen anything conclusive, but it sounds like it's a sure thing. So that, would make me not want to develop an API for it, especially if they're going to be putting out a remaster. But Diablo itself, the first one, is such an old game And I was actually surprised when they released it for on the GOG service for sale because Blizzard stopped selling it for years. But Diablo is such an old game that I feel that one is more comfortable. And I mean, if you're gonna use a bot to farm items for yourself in Diablo, it's a lot easier to just edit your character and give yourself the items. With how old and how badly that game is designed against anti-cheating, because there's pretty much no anti-cheating in it.
True enough. True enough.
Yeah, it's like making the API isn't doing any harm really to the Diablo ecosystem.
I remember having cheating programs when I was in elementary school, like basically within a year of Diablo 2 coming out, so it shouldn't be that hard, and it's a solved problem as well.
I think everybody that's played the first Diablo online has seen, the godly plate of the whale, which is an impossible item to have because those affixes can't be on the same item. So
yeah, something like that. All right. And you do actively develop the Diablo API or just use it?
I am actively developing it. So I started it, I think it was back in 2018. I didn't like the direction that I was going with it, mainly just with the design, and ended up taking like a year off from it, mainly because I wanted to redesign it, but at first I wasn't exactly sure how. And around that time too, that I started to take my break from it is when I started development work on BWAPI 5. But then after my work concluded on BWAPI 5, I took inspiration from what was done there with a new design concept for DAPI. And so after taking like a few months just break, not working on any major projects, I was able to dive back into DAPI and work on it. And really, I found what helped me was kind of, I think, similar to what WillBot described with like just starting from scratch to do something new. Because I would start with redesigning the way that it was laid out and just kind of get overwhelmed with, oh, well, now I've moved this and stuff. And like, I'm not having something that can build successfully for so long, where I was just like, you know what, let's just open a new Visual Studio project or, solution. Let's just create new projects, create new files, start from scratch with not abandoning the old, using the old as reference, but like, let's just start anew. And from that, like now the API is back to pretty much feature parity with the old one, with a completely new design where instead of your bot being like, because right now, like BWAPI, the current version can support both a DLL compiled that gets pulled in as your bot or a console connect or, an executable file connecting in. So now the API before rather, connected or just did a DLL that I pulled in, but now it's all an executable connects in using Google Protobuf, which is the way that BWAPI 5 is designed to work. And what's nice about that is that would allow anybody who wants to use the API in a different language, as long as it supports Google Protobuf, you can build your own front end and then work from there.
Yeah, they buffed Protos again. Fucked that.
The more that I use Google Protobuf, the more comfortable that I feel with it and the more that I like it. But it was a bit of a learning curve when I first started to mess with it.
I don't know much about the technical details, so I will not comment on that. It seemed like a pretty good thing for to me, but yeah, I'm not making an idiot of myself by talking about it. So back to sorry.
I don't know anything about it either.
And that's
cool.
That's part of the beauty of it too. And I mean, it's sort of the same with the way that BWAPI 4 works today, where it uses like pipes, I think it is, for the executable or the client connection. You don't really need to know how it works as a bot developer. And if it changes, you don't really need to know how the changes work because it's all supposed to be under the hood from your perspective.
And that's good. And I wanted to ask you about if you probably saw the, I think, OpenAI Dota matches. What do you think about those?
Yes, let's say, of course, I saw the very first, which was this 1v1, where they had, the first had, of course, only the AI to control one bot or one, how do you say, one hero. And then they put this out and really nice show match against the like most well-known Dota player, which is Dandy. And yeah, this was pretty impressive. And yeah, and 1 year later, I guess it's now 2 years ago. I'm not completely sure. They 1 year ago, they put out the OpenAI 5, so they really managed to yeah to let five heroes work together to play a full match of Dota. So yeah, this was really impressive. Yeah.
Speaking of show matches, I have a big announcement uh, that next week, July the 4th, Independence Day, we will have a big SCHNAIL talk show slash replay submission event, and it will take a format that first of all, our caster will be Falcon Paladin. We worked with him before. I think if you don't know him, please look him up. He's quite a good caster and a pretty nice guy. And he will be our host, and there will be 3 players and 3 bot authors participating in that show. We will discuss the state of the bots in SCHNAIL, watch some games narrated by Falcon, and then we will discuss the results. And also there was an ongoing replay contest on SCHNAIL, and we will cast some games from those as well, the ones that we deem maybe the most entertaining ones. So that will happen next week. I will, of course, announce it, and I will provide much more information than this, but just save the date for now. It's July 4th. And a sad side note, originally we were gonna have Rapid as our caster. In light of recent events, that's not gonna happen, and that's all I want to talk about this topic. Let's not do that. It is a sad topic, and frankly, this is not the place to discuss it. Just as a side note. Returning to the talk show, I don't know if you have any questions, and that goes for people in the chat as well. I will answer them, or you can have suggestions at this point as well, because nothing is set in stone at this point. But basically, the plan is to make our own pylon show with blackjack and hookers.
I'm not very skilled at blackjack, but if you want to play some Texas Hold'em, that's a fun game.
I don't know. I played a little bit of poker, but I never was much into it. You know, there was a time period when everyone was a poker pro. Then it's quite quietly faded away. All right. Yeah, go on.
I was just gonna say, I think I have on my PlayStation 2 like World Series of Poker video game from that era. So.
Okay, next piece of news is COG deadline is coming up. I saw some activity, but I think people are not very excited about that this year. How do you see that? What's your personal take on it?
Well, yeah, I actively thinking about participating in this, but I saw all the maps that are used or potentially used in COG, and tested some, and first thing was Crash, and I was like, is it really worth to work on all this?
Yeah, I think that's one of the challenges and one of the reasons that why SSC AIT has kind of stayed on the same ladder pole for so long. I know among some authors there really is like a hunger for new maps and more conventional maps, especially from the authors that are more interested in the human versus bot play. But it's definitely a challenge when you rely on a library that you've not written yourself for map analysis. When that map analysis goes awry, especially to the point where it just crashes, if you're not like aware or not aware enough, for I don't want to like say you're not skilled enough, but like if you just don't know that library well enough and how it works to modify it, you're kind of up a creek without a paddle. Like it's like, well, I guess I can't compete in that because I can't play on those maps, and you're kind of at the mercy of whomever either knows how to update that library or who wrote that library to fix it for those maps. So I think that can be one pitfall that we have as a community with just with map analysis in general. But yeah, I did see that the COG, and yeah, it's July 3rd is the registration deadline if anybody is looking to register for it. But you do have from the 3rd to the 31st to actually make your submission. So if you're even thinking about it, you could register July 3rd. And then if your bot's just not going to be able to perform by July 31st, then, you just don't submit.
Gentlemen, I fear we have grown complacent with our map pool. For too long we have rejected advancements in that area, and that has beaten us in the behind. It is time to rise up and switch to new maps.
Yeah, I mean, I love the efforts, and I love how SCHNAIL, SCHNAIL is introducing, more pro maps that are more in circulation and that current human players are more familiar with. And I think that's kind of the push that the community needs, is those people with the know-how to update the map analysis to want to engage in those arenas. And so they update it, and then that way everybody can participate it.
And I'd like to give a shout out to Freakling and some of the members of the map making community, because we've seen some backports of maps, of popular maps, to 1.16, and that's no small feat. The most prominent example is the Core Breach map, which is a 1.16 version of the Inner Coven map, which is one of my favorites actually. It is really really a well-designed map. It has its own meta, basically.
Well, the thing with the COG map pool is, Purple Wave now pointing out that these are, they are kind of interesting, but they are also, difficult and also old. So, yeah, and the thing also which kind of me at which point I was kind of a bit shocked was, there are a lot of maps and they only will use some of this in the tournament. So if they only put us like 5 maps and all will be used in the tournament, and I have to make my bot fit for these 5 maps, then it would be okay. But making for like 10 or 12 maps which are new to my bot and also difficult and will take a lot of tricks and so on to implement to decently play it. So then it seems like a little bit a lot to work. Yeah, I mean if you're gradually adding some maps, then it's fine. Yeah, and of course they also should be new and interesting to the public. Yeah.
Well, that's why on SCHNAIL you can just select which maps are supported by your bot. I think that's a good way to go about it. And eventually we will have a lot of maps, and I would like to have a lot of maps properly handled by the libraries.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges too that Will is kind of hitting at is, just time management. And a lot of these bot projects are hobbies, and they're not being done by companies that have huge teams working on them. There are a few like that, but the majority are not that. And so, adding support for a new map is not trivial. And so when you're asking, like Will said, for a large amount of maps need to be supported, it's a lot more of a time investment than if it were a smaller pool.
And development time is always the great bottleneck. And as you said, we don't have big companies standing behind that. And the problem is that development costs a lot of money. And yeah, money could solve this problem, but I don't think we can. I think at this point we don't have that stable funding in this scene. And that might actually change. We never know.
It would be interesting if some of the libraries had money thrown at them to update them. That would be an interesting concept. An open source library, somebody being paid to update it for like new maps or something.
I think it's not unconceivable that something like this will happen in the future. I really don't. We are not there yet, of course.
I guess at first there should be money thrown at the development of BW API 5.
Definitely, that should be the prime directive here. But also we will get there. Speaking of APIs, I started documenting the SCHNAIL APIs because there are some queries and submission API endpoints which are meant to be public, and some people prefer to interact with the SCHNAIL environment via an API. This is especially useful if you, for example, want to download your own games. Because the replay browser is designed in a way that it is not suitable for mass replay downloads, and that's intentional. I don't want anyone scraping the site or just taking off resources for no reason.
That makes sense. I wonder if Bazel is designed that way, because I was looking through Bazel the last week, I think it was, when I was making the SSC AI Tcast for some games. And I was like, this is not the easiest thing to work through. So I wonder if it's designed with that same idea of, well, we don't want people to just kind of mass scrape off of this.
Well, I didn't really see any attempts yet, fortunately, but you should be proactive in these matters.
Oh, definitely.
By the way, SCIT just moved this week, I think beginning of this week, because Chertichki was leaving the university when he was residing, and couldn't take the exact hardware with him, but the SCIT site is up and running, so I guess the moving was successful. We didn't really ask him what happened or how it went, but apparently everything is in order now. Speaking of replays also, we have a few thousand matches now, and I think that's starting to be a significant number, and I think we should look into replay analysis territory as well. Did you do anything in that area, or do you have ideas what you would like to data mine from replays, let's say?
Well, as I said before, me personally, I'm more of a practical debugger, so mass replays is not necessarily helpful to me, but I know it could definitely be helpful to others.
Not just in a context of one bot, but in a context of like general AI play. A good example would be the build order extraction that we see in Bazel. You can see the most popular, or not most popular, but like the build orders listed as just text, and I think that would be something that would be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think something that would be nice to see if the ladder play can get more attention is, like, for instance, like if I know how a bot plays and I know a bot's weakness and I know I'm playing that bot, I can gear my build from the start to exploit it if I want to. But if I don't know that I'm playing against that bot, how am I going to play against it? Am I going to do something that's actually going to be detrimental prior to recognizing the bot I'm playing or not? I think that kind of behavior would be cool to tease out of the data and see, well, this player, practices against, Crazio a lot, but then when they run into Crazio on the ladder, maybe they do really good, but then if any other bot they come across, they don't, because they're always playing assuming they're up against Crazio when it's Terran or something. But I don't think you're getting enough, from what it sounds like, it doesn't sound like you're getting enough play to really be able to determine something like that, but that would be cool to see. Because I know that's one of the problems that we found with like AI from the big companies is they come out onto the scene and they're super impressive against people that are pro or semi-pro. But then like if they do like a series of 5 by like the 5th game, usually the player's like, oh, I've figured out a trick to exploit it. Make its units run like from my base all the way back to its base and then back to mine and back and forth. I think that happened with StarCraft too, with the amazing Blink Stalkers. So it's like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in seeing, is like, how long does it take for humans to find exploits in the AI as they are today? And then, how does that work when they don't know what they're playing against?
It's like somehow the inverse of the mechanical Turk. What is happening here? It's like acts as if it were some advanced AI, but yeah, you find the weak point of something trivial that the developers didn't think of, and that's it. And yeah, that's why you need machine learning, because you can't. I don't think it's feasible to cover every corner case. It's just too many combinations in a game.
Yeah, and I mean, machine learning even struggles with that a bit, because I think with the StarCraft 2 example, I think they did use machine learning for most of it. And it still ran into that problem where it would run its whole army to defend, even if it didn't need the whole army there to defend. So it seems like perhaps some of the techniques that are used in AI today are kind of hitting like a limit of sorts, and like we need something new to come along onto the scene.
I think the approach is either too basic, like you try to tune the machine learning to look at very small elements like a move command or something, or either going the other way, just extrapolate everything from build orders. And I believe the answer is somewhere between the two. I mean, moving a unit, or for example, a good element of machine learning could be vulture micro. If this happens, or if these are the conditions, then I should just kite with my vultures. Now, kite with a vulture is not a command that you can issue in the AI. It is a set of commands which might be different in different contexts. But I think that is the level, like, let's say the tactical level is where you should have your elements of or building blocks of machine learning, and the machine learning could only call those. I know this is still a little bit vague, but I think the scope of commands is where where this should improve a lot. I don't know if that was my explanation understandable. I think I a little bit jumped around.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Essentially, what is the finiteness of the building blocks that you set for your learning algorithm to learn to use? And, are those building blocks, too large? Are they too small? Fine tuning that is where you can see a large difference in the performance of what your learning algorithm figures out how to do, is what I got from what you said.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it.
Well, I can come back to the question before, and I can just a little note. I was using the replay browser on SCHNAIL, and I see, okay, my bot, well, it got a win against this player and a win against this player. Then when I took a look at the replays and I figured out it was just the person playing the bot kind of got the win by itself, and then by himself, and then he got fed up and left the game. So it was only a technical win for my bot, but I guess it's not easy to detect, but it was a kind of remarkable thing, and that's different than looking through all the bot versus bot replays.
Yeah, an issue is that we have this culture of giving up kind of early. And I think many pro players, or we see many pro matches when after the first major engagement, the loser just gives up. And in many cases, that game is not over yet. We saw comebacks, we see comebacks all the time. I guess it makes sense for human players. Maybe they are just defeated psychologically as well, or they are just tired or something, and there are other factors going on.
Yeah, maybe really just trying out the bot, and well, is this interesting for practice or is it not interesting? And then he's deciding fast, oh, whatever, maybe something came along, and so he got this.
Yeah, on that note, some things, like sort of how like Zerg have an extra resource they have to manage that the other two races don't, the larva. They kind of joke that's the third resource of StarCraft. Human players compared to a bot have a resource that we have to manage: our energy, our attention. An attention can drain after a long, hard-fought game. So as a player, if you're early on in a game and you lose a major engagement, it can just feel like it's not worth investing more energy in that game, because then, like, especially if, say, you're wanting to practice, you want to get 10 games in tonight. Well, I'm more likely to lose this game. Maybe I could still win, but it's going to take a ton of energy and attention and focus to do it, and then I'm going to be less focused in future games. So for this game, I'm going to give up early, and then in the next game, I'll just try and not have that issue happen again. Whereas a bot will just be like, I'll just do everything, every game, 24/7. I don't care. As long as I've got electricity running through me, I'm good. So I think that is a bit of a difference in where you see players, give up early in a game, is for that reason.
Yeah, give me that sweet electricity, baby.
All I need.
So yes, but I think that is actually a good thing if you are looking for a practice partner, because they will not give you some slack. They will just pursue, and you need to. And I understand that the last 5 minutes when you're hunting down the last buildings, that's a chore. But I think the upside is bigger here. The upside is that you don't give up unless you're you need to be sure that you're winning, and that might reinforce some strategies that are not clear, not always clear that you're ahead. Because I saw some games when players were clearly ahead and they just gave up. And I think this is a psychological game, and people are not very good at it.
I mean, I can say as a player, I'm very terrible at judging when I'm ahead or behind. Well, sometimes it's easier to tell when you're behind, but being able to tell when you can go in for like that finishing strike, or when, say, taking out an enemy's expansion was actually a decisive move. As a player, I'm just terrible at that. Always been a weakness of mine.
I watch some BSL games and ladder games, and I hate that when people just, oh, why don't you give up? I already won, blah blah blah. And no, you didn't. You won when you destroyed the last building of the enemy. That's the criteria. Everything else is just tradition. No, you didn't win. Your enemy is not having bad manners. He's playing the games according to the game's rules, and bots do exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I would say too is I think players that are higher level are also just better. Well, they're better at making assumptions of what their opponent is doing and being more accurate with those assumptions. This is something that I've seen Artosis talk about on his streams when I've tuned in from time to time. A lot of pro players make assumptions about what their opponent is going to have and what their opponent is actively doing. So they're usually better at gauging when they are behind or ahead. And that's why you see pro players more willing to like quit a game early. And you might see, and so you might get pro players that get, or semi-pro, or people that are being more seriously competitive get frustrated with other players that don't leave early, because they're like, well, I'm so far ahead. Why can't you see that? Why can't you quit because I'm this far ahead? Like, I would have quit if I was in your position. And that other player probably isn't trying to be malicious. They probably just have no clue how far behind they are. And so that's why they're not quitting, because they're not experienced enough to be able to make that judgment.
Yes, exactly what I wanted to add. It's just they have seen all these situations. Yeah, they just seen it and they've been through it, and so they know, okay, so most probably this will happen, and so I can give up. So they can take this little hint. So I lost too much workers in this raid, and so I'm basically done. I can try really hard, but what does it matter?
Yeah, you could probably think of the bots as sort of like that player that just doesn't have that experience to make those assumptions to know when it needs to tap or when it should tap out. And it's too easy to have your bot prematurely tap out when it could have been ahead, or when it still had a fighting chance, because it just isn't that good at making that judgment call.
Speaking of Artosis, last I was watching his stream, he was A rank, and he might be upper now. I really don't know, but I think even if he's not currently one of the top players, his analysis skills are one of the best, because when we had the show matches and in the last game versus McRave, I think many other people would have given up in his position, but he very, very well gauged McRave's actual position. And I genuinely thought that that game would can just go one way, but no, he just held it out, and he just basically know what McRave was doing and know how to defeat it on a macro level, and that's a really admirable skill. And I think many pro players don't really have that skill, or not as well pronounced as him.
Well, I guess also he didn't want to lose against the bots because well, why would he? I mean, he said, oh, well, it cannot be that the bots are better than the good players, so I won't be defeated. So, and also, of course, it's pretty obvious here that the bot wasn't really concerting its actions and really pushing forward, but only trickling in the units and wasting away its advantage. So.
Well, that was part of it, but if you read the interview with him, it is clear that he was like projecting the enemy's resources and economy, and wasn't wrong about that. And actually, he said that he wouldn't have minded too much if he lost. Probably would have been salty for like 2 minutes, but yeah, I don't think that would be just such a big ego hit for him.
Yeah, that Artosis McRave game was one of my favorites to watch out of that stream, and in some ways I kind of related with the McRave bot, because that's how I feel when I play as Protoss as a human. Is like, okay, I'm sending units in relentlessly and such, and it's like it's not killing my opponent. I don't know how to get this killing blow. Like, how do I finish them off? And then he just keeps weathering the storm. It was great to watch. If anybody listening to this hasn't watched that yet, I would really recommend that you go and watch the whole stream, because the whole stream was entertaining, but the McRave Artosis game was just great.
I think that was like the games. Basically, it went as well as it could have, or almost perfect. It was really a great stream, and yeah, you should watch it.
Yeah, it saved us as bot authors, because some of the previous games were not as interesting. So, and he had an easy time. So, and this was really, well, our last bot, he really did it for.
Yeah, and just to,
yeah.
Or so I was just gonna say, just to toss in Purple Wave's comment from the chat here. He was really impressed at Artosis's accurate on-the-fly realization that McRave had more stuff than you should expect due to mining optimizations. And we're only talking about like an 8% difference, but his perception was well tuned enough that he caught that 8% difference, which speaks to what you were saying, Sanko, with Artosis's ability to analyze a situation.
Yeah, and that's a very good example. Yes, he didn't know about the mining optimizations. He didn't know basically anything about the bots. I mean the specific bots before. So yeah, that's kind of impressive in terms of analytic skills. And the counter example is the Cadenzi versus Lokitus match, when Cadenzi destroyed Lokitus's natural and basically took the game easy, and just thought, oh, the bot is dead anyway. Why should I care? And the bot was not dead anyway, and eventually won against her. So that's a great example of human hubris, I think.
Yeah, and I think that also plays into what I was talking about with the mental resource that we have to pay towards a game, where you get ahead to a certain point where you go, okay, I'm going to invest in this game a little bit less to save myself for future games, and then it comes back to bite you.
Yeah, I believe the first very good bot will just exploit the lack of attention, exploit the attention economy of humans, I think, because humans are bad at multitasking. And we saw that with some open matches versus human matches, that even if the play wasn't as strong, just harassing 10 places at once is so annoying and gets you so disorganized that it might win you the match by itself.
Yeah, and I think a number of like human strategies are kind of designed to try and exploit that too, where you're trying to draw your opponent's attention to multiple places at once, or you're trying to just draw their attention away from something else. And you can't do that against a bot. And the bot can definitely abuse that against you.
Yeah, but as a human, you kind of have to pay the same amount of attention. Maybe there are trade-offs when you can micro easily, and you force your opponent to pay more of larger portion of his effective APM to dealing with you. But it's on the same level. It's same order of magnitude. A bot has no such limitations.
Yeah, bots are really relentless.
All right. I have one more announcement. Let's just switch topics suddenly. I have one more announcement to make, and you're gonna like that. And then it is your time and the chat's time to ask questions and maybe propose some topics. And then I'd like to wrap up the cast, because actually I'm not even a little bit sick today, and to be honest, barely holding my attention. So first, the announcement. You saw the SCHNAIL plushie before. It is a plush SCHNAIL, and maybe I can pull up the image. I should have prepared it. I can definitely post a link in the chat. So, and I will do so. So the thing is, the SCHNAIL plushie will go on a sale next week. We have the production set up, and you will be able to pre-order it. There will be a pre-order period of 1 or 2 months. We haven't decided yet, and then we will ship all the ordered units at once. So rejoice. And that's all I had for today. Like I said, if you want to talk about something else, or you feel that we left something out, then feel free to suggest it. But after that, I'd like to wrap this show up a little bit. All right, I think that's it then. Thank you very much, and sorry for to cut this short, but I'm really not feeling well today. So thanks NiteKat and WillBot, and WillBot, I hope you will join us in the future as well. And well, see you next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and have a good time, everybody. And Shonko, get.
I echo Will's sentiments there.
Okay. Thank you guys. Goodbye. Thank you very much for listening. If you want to support the Undermind, the SCHNAIL project, or making computer do things, you can do so on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/mcdt and you can select your pledge there. And a shout out to my higher level patrons, Forte and Bruce Nielsen. Thank you guys, you made a lot of this possible.